Hi and welcome to Project T.O.T YouTube channel. My name's B. I'm going to talk about who we are, what we do, how, and a little bit more about myself, the CEO and founder of this youth project. First and foremost, Project T.O.T is a non-profit organisation based in Manchester. We aim to work closely with other organisations in order to break the trauma cycle and make a disruption in order to protect our children. How are we going to do this, and what are we going to do? We aim to work within the community, parents and schools, organisations, and much more, raising awareness with our interactive workshops and also one-to-one mentoring and trauma therapy for those who need it the most. Raising awareness on important topics such as domestic abuse awareness, online safety, grooming, the aftermath and the trauma informative aspect. It's so important for our young people to be aware of these things. I was always told, you can't stop bad things from happening, but you can damn well make sure you can minimise the risk and make yourself aware of how to reduce the risk. So that is what we set out to do, to protect our children. Freedom of speech, trauma informative, and other important and vital essential resources for young people to take with them to be able to integrate into society with a profound skill set. Who am I and why am I doing this? There's so many reasons behind how the passion comes and where it comes from. The fire in me comes from the fact I never actually got to live as a child. I've never experienced what a standard child would experience. I was bullied in high school for a long period of time, and I remember having a fight and I was excluded. And it's so easy to point the finger at a child and say that that's the bad one, you know, she's bad or he's bad, they're out of control, they need help, they're hanging around with the wrong people. But the root cause issue of that is often dismissed to why young people are feeling like that. And the emotional barriers and the stigma against mental health for young people is rife. And Project T.O.T work with young people in order to break that barrier and for them to be able to understand their emotions and be able to express themselves freely without the fear of being told off, for example. Again, for me, the system, the way it works, and I feel it has become an outlet for perpetrators to be able to talk around the reasons of their abuse towards either a young person or anybody else. For me, the start of a child's life and how they are expressing their emotions and how they come across, it's vital. And that will define how they make their choices later in life, which is exactly what happened to me. So from a young age, I was abused. I had been through some really, really deep, dark trauma with regards to being abused sexually, physically, emotionally, support networks around school, and they all abused their trust. They all let me down. Me having to listen to what they had to say, and that is abuse. You know, a young person in school, if you're around, let's say, the gang culture, if you're around drugs, substances, if you're around people that are not getting the homework in on time, for example, and they're more interested in making money at a very young age, and you're affiliated, you know, that's the word they use, isn't it? You're affiliated with those people, you're immediately branded by teachers as well. And I always had this pattern of events where it was always me in trouble. If I was to speak up and stand up for myself, it was always me. I was always the gobby one. I was always the one that was in the wrong. And it's affected me a long time. And even I know that the importance of a young person feeling like that and how it can make them escalate and feel depressed and anxious about being able to express themselves, being able to speak out if they're abused or they're bullied, or somebody's, for example, making them do something that they don't want to do. They're not going to speak out to anybody they can't trust. Project T.O.T works, the number one and a golden rule is trust. I find it very hard to trust people. I know there's young people out there that are gonna be like, what can you do for me? And how are you different to everybody else? And the bottom line is I've been there. I've been that child. I've been abused by people in very high positions of power. I've been abused by people in the educational sector. I decided to leave home at a very young age. I was a confused and a lost child, 100%. I was a child. No child makes the decision to go and sell substances or sell themselves or try and make it in the world. No child just wakes up one day and thinks, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do to survive. No child does that. They're led to that. They're abused. And the people behind it are getting away with it. The people behind it in the system are allowing this to continue. And over the 20 years, from up until now, nothing has changed really. It's all deteriorated. So since now till this day, it's still happening. Why is it still happening? Project T.O.T are here to disrupt that cycle and to change that. People ask me questions. You're not going to change the system. Just give up while you can. My answer to that is that makes me just like them that allow for this to continue, that can't be bothered to support these young people, to give them the best possible chance in further life, to give them a different career path, to give them a different outlet, to be able to turn that pain into power, okay? And again, an answer to that for me would be, I know I can't change the world. I don't intend to change the world. I intend to make a huge change within it. So when I'm gone, I can leave that legacy for these young people to continue. For all those others that have been voiceless, for all those others that can't speak out, that are too scared to speak out because their parent, their carer, somebody they trust, somebody around them is abusing them and they don't want to speak up because they're too scared. So we will be working with schools, other educational organisations, youth offender services, and intend to break some doors down and barriers down within the system and within the way the policing works regarding domestic abuse and the way children are treated, because it needs to change. My trauma and my experiences, my unfortunate experiences, started off by adults abusing me. And that cycle develops. That cycle, it became my way of life. And that is exactly what happens to young people. So it's not because they're the problem. No child chooses to go out and take a substance to ease the pain unless they're exposed to it. No young person decides to pick up that weapon and say, this is what I'm going to use to protect myself when I'm out there in the real world, on the street. They wouldn't do that unless they were exposed to it and they had some knowledge of how to do it, because they've been exposed to it by somebody else. And a lot of the time as a young person, in fact, I'm going to say the majority of the time, the young person is being groomed or they're being targeted for a reason. And that becomes a way of life. So that is what Project T.O.T is about, to break that cycle, to disrupt that cycle, because that is all I ever knew. And it took me 20 years to break that cycle. I've had great support to be able to find myself. And for the first time this year, I'm comfortable in who I am. I accept who I am, regardless of what's happened to me. And young people need this hope. Young people will have this light. This is that light at the end of that tunnel, so to speak. It's that light, but we come in, Project T.O.T comes in at a very early stage to break that cycle before things deteriorate, before young people turn to that gang culture as a living, before young girls turn to prostitution and being abused and end up in domestic abuse relationships and see it as a norm, because that's all they know. So I endeavour and I am passionate to break that cycle at a very young age, to be able to work with schools, organisations, like I've said, other non-profit organisations that have the same drive and passion as me, to be able to make this better along the way for young people. So that's what we're about, and that is what we do. We take referrals through other agencies as well for young people, and children deserve to be loved. Okay? But first and foremost, children deserve a safe environment. Deserve an environment that they are comfortable and safe and happy in. You know, and I always think back to my childhood, feeling safe and sometimes not feeling safe. And again, there were reasons for that, because people took advantage of my vulnerability, of the age factor. It's so much easier to seep information into a young person than it is someone an adult, right? Because you're set in your ways by then. But then again, if the longer that trauma cycle prolongs for that young person and they turn to an adult, it's much harder to break it. The impact mentally, it's life-changing. You know, I am living proof of that. But I will work towards making it better, making a change, and being able to have young people at the forefront and their voices heard for what is happening, and the truth about the injustice that needs to be fairer. It needs to be changed. It needs to be pushed forward for these young people to have justice for the abuse that they've suffered at the hands of perpetrators. So, in addition, I am raising £1 million to provide essential resources to young people in the Wythenshawe area, and also to provide emergency accommodation for women fleeing from domestic abuse. £500,000 of the 1 million will be donated to Wythenshawe Safe Spots to enable them to keep delivering the help and support that they give to women fleeing from abuse. So it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, where you come from, what you look like. Project T.O.T. So rest assured, I will not stop till I reach the 1 million. I will keep going to push and let the world know about this message of breaking this trauma cycle for young people who need it the most, that have been affected by abuse. So if you're on this journey and you're interested as well to know more, please check out my website, www.projects-tot.org. All the details to the fundraiser are within the website, and there is some essential learning material that I hope you find useful. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon. A lot of people don't like me because I speak the truth. That's absolutely fine. That's not a problem for me, because I know what I'm doing is for those children that need this, to develop them into strong adults that can be able to understand themselves and process their emotions. Because if I can help one child not go through what I went through mentally and physically, you know, that's my job done, you know, and I'm already starting to do that. So the channel will consist of trauma informative. It will consist a lot of videos regarding the system, the injustice, the corruption. So stay tuned. Please subscribe to my channel. I didn't come for fame. I came for change.